So hello, welcome. Now I can see. Great. Hello to everyone.
Good morning, Vessantara.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Or whatever time it is where you are.
Hello.
Good morning, Vessantara.
Who's that?
Dharma Vajri.
Good morning, Dharma Vajri. Ah, yes. Welcome to you in Bristol.
Thank you.
So we'll just let people get settled.
Good morning, Vessantara. This is Sujoini in London.
Hello to you.
I'm sorry I can't show my picture, but I'm on really dodgy Wi-Fi network, so you've just got a photo of me.
That will do. That will do. I know you're there. That's great.
Morning, Vessantara. Tara Vandana here.
Hi, Tara Vandana. Good to hear your voice.
Good morning, Vessantara. How are you?
I'm very well, Prasada Vajri, thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good evening, everybody.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Vessantara and everyone, all the way from Valencia. Very happy to be here.
Excellent. Very, very pleased to have a Spanish contingent on this retreat.
Guten Morgen, Vessantara aus Wiesbaden. Upeksha.
Upeksha Lila. Good morning to you.
Guten
Very
Morgen.
good to hear you. Guten Morgen. Wie geht's?
Oh, danke, gut.
So, all right. Let's I think we could think about starting in. And how are we going to start? That's the question. Yeah, everybody just about settled. Okay. Actually, we're going to start meditating. I think that's how it's going to be. Yeah, let's do it. Sorry about this. But I think the chances are that most days we'll, at the beginning of this session 2, we'll start by meditating, but I never quite know till we get here. But it's always a good way to start. And I don't know too, with this retreat, there's quite a lot of material to get through. So some days we may launch into more of these pieces of advice, but usually we'll meditate. So at the beginning of a meditation, so if we come back to what Bhante used to call a point of freedom. There's nothing we have to do, nothing we have to respond to. Just breathe easy. Now taking awareness down to the ground. Feeling or imagining energy and awareness going down into the earth. Through that deep contact with the earth, becoming more and more stable, more and more steady. Really taking in all the positive qualities of the earth. Now letting the body rise up, sense of openness in the spine. Right up to the crown of the head, just reaching towards the sky. We're poised between the sky and the earth. Maybe for a minute, just feeling this strange mystery of this small body associated with a mind that can feel the vastness of the earth, the vastness of the sky. Now bringing awareness into the body. Being aware of any particular aspects of the body that would really appreciate attention, appreciate kindly awareness. Now bringing awareness to our heart center. That kind of core place in our being. In English, we sometimes say, in my heart of hearts, I knew what I had to do. So it's that kind of place where we're putting our awareness. And in that sort of core heart place, we invite the refuge. We invite the qualities of awakening. Feeling them, sensing them, maybe seeing them. Embodied in the Buddha or Yidam, in whatever way is right for us. And however the refuge appears, it's a sense that it embodies all the qualities, all the adhisthana of the Buddha, that whole lineage of Bodhichitta that's come down with the 7-point mind training. So our heart centers become a dharma treasure chest. All these awakened qualities have an energy. They're active. So with each out breath, we find our whole body starting to fill with qualities. And particularly whatever's needed. Whatever qualities would be most helpful for us. And with each in-breath, all our frustrations, all our misunderstanding of how things are, all our anxieties and fears, all the kleshas, all kinds of suffering on all levels, is taken into the refuge in our heart. And all that mass of suffering dissolves away completely. So we become happier, lighter, freer, more loving, more alive, fearless. If it helps the process, imagine the suffering being taken away as like a dark cloud or a heaviness that's being dissolved. And the qualities filling our body with light. And now the process continues. Including everyone meditating here. may know some people on the retreat, may have a sense of some of the sufferings that they encounter. All those are taken away. In general, whatever suffering there is, all dissolves into the refuge in our heart. We feel, we sense, we see the transformation taking place as we all become wiser, more loving, deeply peaceful. All these qualities, whatever's needed, whatever helps, is going out to all of us. And now it feels like we're making anything happen. Just relax. It's just life going on with awareness. And ending by sharing the benefits of what's taken place with all beings. No need to hold on to anything. Okay, so in the last session yesterday, we looked at first training the preliminaries, which we saw was about the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, the four common preliminaries. And also within a session, traditionally, of this Lojong practice, you'd begin with some Guru Yoga. So I explored that a little bit. So in this session, I want to carry on and look at begin looking at point 2, which is the main practice, training in Bodhichitta. And the main practice is in 2 parts. There's absolute or ultimate bodhicitta and relative bodhicitta. So there's the view of things, if you like, and then there's application in terms of practicing Tonglen and so on. Sometimes, particularly in the Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism, they start by teaching all the relative bodhicitta and then they go on to the ultimate or absolute bodhicitta afterwards. In the Kagyu school, they do it this way around. So we're going to start by looking at a couple of the absolute bodhicitta precepts. And we won't do all of these on this retreat. So I'm thinking probably we'll think of things as dreamlike and examine the nature of unborn awareness in this retreat. And we'll do the others in March. So we'll get around to resting in the nature of the Alaya in a couple of months' time. So we're going to start looking at think of things as dreamlike. And I guess the reason why we start with the ultimate bodhicitta is that the view that you bring to a practice is absolutely kind of crucial. Yeah. What you're telling yourself about the aim of the practice and what it's achieving, and what you're telling yourself about yourself and life as you do the practice is going to be a very strong condition for what happens and how it turns out. So it's good to look at some of the views and ideas that we're bringing to things before we go into the details of the practice. So this is think of things as dreamlike. Yeah. And this is an idea that you find all over Mahayana Buddhism. You find it as in the Perfection of Wisdom texts, and you find it strongly in Yogacara school, which looks at the nature of mind. So first off, it's worth just really taking in that it's not saying think of everything as a dream. It's saying think of everything as like a dream. So it's an analogy, it's a metaphor. And the analogy, the metaphor is that, well, it's like falling asleep. If you fall asleep and you dream, unless you have a lucid dream where you're aware and you know that you're dreaming, in the dream, you take whatever happens as real. Yeah, you meet an elephant, walking through your local shopping center in your dream, and there's the elephant walking through your shopping center, and something in you may feel like, oh, that's a bit unusual, but you just take it at face value. You take it as this is how it is. Yeah, there's the elephant. But then you wake up at the end of the night, or you wake up out of the dream and you realize, oh, it wasn't as real as I thought it was. What I was taking as being absolutely how things are, I've discovered is not absolutely how things are. It wasn't so real after all. And so it's saying similarly with ourselves and with life, how we're often taking things to be real, particularly how we take it that there's a real me confronted with a real world out there with real solid people and objects that are permanent and reliable that I can hold on to and grasp. None of that is as solid and real and true as I'm taking it to be. So it's just putting a question against our everyday view of life, out of which come all those everyday kleshas that appear when you hold that view. We feel, oh, I can really hold on to things because they're solid and real. Yeah, we can feel I was really upset by that person saying that because I'm solid and real. Yeah. We feel like, oh, things will really last and I can really rely on them when they're impermanent and flowing and changing. So it's pointing at all of this. And the more insight that arises, the more clearly we see, well, no, actually, we've been adding on to simple experience assumptions that turn out not to be right. Yeah. The assumption that here's me separate from everybody else and the rest of life. No, it's not quite like that, really. The assumption that things will be lasting and permanent and people will be lasting and permanent and that no bad things ever happen to people that I love. All those assumptions, they're with seeing how things really are, we see, oh, I've just been adding all that onto experience. Yeah. And those add-ons actually caused me all the difficulty. So this precept leads us into an examination of how we create our world, yeah, out of quite simple sense experience, just simple sounds, sights, thoughts, and so on, words and pictures in our heads. We create a world. Yeah. So it's just asking us to be aware that that's what we're doing all the time. Yeah. Just as in a dream, there's a whole kind of mental creation that appears. Yeah. The difference is that in a dream, the whole thing is, if you like, our mental creation, to call it that. Whereas in everyday life, there's something, there are, presumably, we can never prove it, but there are external people and cushions and all kinds of things. But we never actually experience those as they are. We experience the five senses, bringing in information, which we then work up into a picture of the world, yeah, along with all kinds of interpretation. Yeah. So it's good to be aware of that, because if we just simply take everything at face value, along with our interpretations of it, then there's bound to be suffering. There has to be suffering. So you can sometimes take this, a piece of advice like this, and go into a whole kind of philosophical thing about the nature of mind and yeah, so okay, everything that I see actually is my mind's kind of creation of things, recreation of things. So does that mean that anything really exists? And And what about all these other people who are appearing in my mind? And presumably I'm appearing in their minds. And how do these minds meet? And how do we ever have common experience? And all that can be very interesting, but it's not really where this precept is wanting to take us. And this precept is the whole of the mind training is really, really, really practical. You know, how is this going to help us not suffer? How is this going to help us open our heart? How is this going to help us help other people? That's what it's all about. Yeah. So if we can go into that kind of philosophical speculation and exploration if it interests us, but it's not really where we want to go, and it can be a complete sidetrack. Yeah. It's more like we just want to put this kind of little question mark against how we're interpreting our experience. Yeah. Maybe it's a bit more like a dream than I thought it was. Maybe I'm bringing more to this experience than I realize. Maybe I'm assuming that things are a certain way when actually I'm not noticing that's my assumption. So it's trying to bring us to a kind of middle point where we're not just taking things for granted as they are, but at the same time, we don't want to go to the other extreme, which people sometimes get to. You say, okay, let's do an exercise in the break today. Let's all go for a little walk and see everything as dreamlike. So people go off and do that, and they come back and say, oh, everything felt unreal. And oh, I didn't really like it. And what's happened there is that you've gone kind of to the other extreme. You're sort of from using this piece of advice to help you from taking things as they are, as real and solid and reliable. You step out of that. And because we think in this very either or way, we go, well, if things aren't completely real, they must be completely unreal. And we go into a rather kind of alienated state. And you could even think, well, if everything's, if nothing's really real, then I don't have to care about it. And nothing matters. And you go towards a sort of nihilism. Yes, and it's not that either. What we want is to take this and be able to use it to help us to soften our emotional ups and downs. Yeah. Particularly as we come into the mind training more, and we start to really sort of be meeting suffering, which we're going to be doing with the Tonglen. If we're taking that suffering as really real and heavy, and ourselves as really real, becoming very heavy in response to it, we're not going to be able to do much of it. Yeah. It's just going to weigh us down and weigh us down and weigh us down. And we'll either just stop, or if we carry on, we'll sort of burn ourselves out. Yeah. So we need that flexibility of mind. This is really what we're looking for, a flexibility where we can move between really taking this seriously. Yeah. You're suffering, I really care about that. What can I do to help? Yeah, you take the suffering as real. You take the situation as real. Yeah. And being able to move to another point where actually nothing is that real. Yeah. Everything passes. Yeah. It's like life passes. Life can go in a moment. Yeah. It's like if I go running in the break after this session, and where I am, there's a sort of large tractor sort of comes out of a gateway or something and flattens me, then all of a sudden, all of you and the forest around here and the hills, they will go, gone. Yeah. So, how, like a dream, that will all have gone. Yeah. So it's not all quite as solid and unreal as we take it. So we need to be able to move between, really taking things as real and engaging emotionally, and being able to step back and kind of go, well, okay, but it's not so real actually. We need to be able to be flexible in moving in and out of how we take things. They're both views about how things are. The view that it's all solid and real is a view. The view that it's all just like a dream, that's a view. What we want is a mind that's able to be with situations without getting caught up. To be able to freely move in and freely move out. To be able to really go and help someone, and then, okay, we feel that situation, and then it flows. We want flowing experience. So this is trying to give us that sense. A dream appears and it has an effect, but then it goes and the next thing appears. We don't want to be stuck holding on to what happened in the dream. So this is what this is trying to sort of get at. I think this is what it's getting at for me. So we want to see where this is a helpful remedy in our life. We want it to be able to soften things. We want it to give us a sense of perspective. Very often when we engage with suffering, we lose a sense of perspective. And we don't manage to find a place where we can kind of rest. It's like we read about something in the news, or we see it on social media somewhere, and we kind of can't put it down. So this is trying to give us a deep way of being able to let things drop. It's a bit like having a sense of humor. A sense of humor is a sense of perspective. And that's what we want to be able to have. It's like a sense of perspective. Yes, something is really serious, and we can kind of laugh about it. It's like in wartime, like in the Second World War in London, somebody would go home and they discover they didn't have a home to go to. While they'd been away, their house had been bombed. And they go, oh, well, I never did like that front door anyway. So something like that, it just kind of, in a way it's silly, but in a way it just gives you that little bit of space, that little bit of emotional room to maneuver. It's just like, oh, it's not the end of the world. It's not quite as serious. Do you see what I mean? It gives you that sense of freedom to not be caught in one emotional stance, in one way of being, not to be trapped. So, we want this flexibility, moving towards things, and then being able to kind of step out and treat them more lightly. And eventually they come together. Really get the impression this is why the Bodhisattva's work is play. Because they really go into the situation and it affects them. But it's not, there's nobody there to be weighed down. They don't carry the situation off with them into the next situation. In the moment, it's fully experienced. They're fully there. Their heart's fully open. And then an hour later, there's another situation, and they're fully in that. That's what we're looking for. So this is just one way of getting us into that. There is a level of it where it can be helpful to think of things as dreamlike, in the sense that everything is our own experience. So in a dream, it's like if I meet Dharma Shri or Dharma Pakshin, or on my screen in front, in a dream, when I wake up, I realize, oh, actually, they were appearances in my own mind. actually, similarly, as I'm looking at you now, I can't say what you're like in yourselves. Your appearances in my own mind. Yeah, my eyes are creating images which I'm then interpreting and thinking, oh, there's Dharma Shri, there's Dharma Pakshin. Yeah, and I'm feeling responses. But your appearances in my mind, just as much as when I look at myself in a mirror. Yeah? Everything is an appearance within mind. So in that sense, there's no fundamental difference, there's no fundamental separation between Vessantara looking in a mirror and Vessantara looking at Dharma Pakshin and Dharma Shri. Yeah, you're all appearances within mind. There's no separation there. Yeah, I think, oh, Dharma Pakshin's down in the West Country and Dharma Shri's over there somewhere. But actually, we're all in, all of us are appearances in awareness land. Yeah? And if we get that, and it's not an easy thing to get, it's more than an idea, but if we get it, we realize that we're not separate. We realize that there's no separation. We're always, all these apparently separate beings are all appearances within awareness. And and awareness is seamless. You can't chop awareness into bits and say, right, awareness stops, at the frontier of my skin. It's not like that. So if we really get that, then actually there's a deep sense of connectedness with everyone and everything. So that's the real deep level of it. Okay, so that's a quick introduction to think of things as dreamlike. So let's have a 15-minute dreamlike cup of whatever you want to have, and we'll come back at a 1/4 past. Yeah, and then during these 15 minutes, just be aware as you're looking around that what you're experiencing actually is your own mind. See it as a bit more like a dream. Yeah, just realize that, oh, it's not quite those solid things out there that I think of them as. Just drop a little bit of that into your awareness and just see what it does. Okay, see you in 15 minutes.
Hello, baby.
video. Okay, most people back by the look of it. Can you scroll through to a screen with me on it? So, okay. Yep. So before the break, we were thinking of things as dreamlike. And another function of that is that it's, if you feel like, okay, let's imagine this is really like a dream, you tend to see everything fresh and new. You tend to really kind of take it in for the first time. It's just because you're giving it a different significance. So I think I'll take a question next, which somebody sent in after yesterday. Get into this iPad. There we are. Yeah. So this follows on from the last session yesterday, where I was talking about inspiration. So the questioner says, something came up for me during the practice where we connected with our inspiration. When I was pretty new to the Dharma, I had a period of being extremely inspired and expansive. But I also made a couple of really bad decisions during that time that had a huge impact on my Dharma life and general well-being for many years. I feel like even today, there's a part of me that is deeply terrified of fully accessing inspiration from this experience. Do you have any tips? That's the essence of the question. So, yeah, I could really sort of resonate with this question. I think it's very common in the early stages of Dharma life to become really inspired by the Dharma. You know, you're taking it in for the first time. It really has a tremendous impact on you. And as a result of that, you can do things or take on things which are a long way beyond what you're ready to do and sustain emotionally. And you can do that because you don't know yourself very well at that point. Yeah. There's a lot of you that hasn't really come into awareness yet. So, yeah, years ago, I gave a talk on a men's order weekend called Here Be Dragons, which was all about pitfalls on the spiritual path. And some people didn't like it very much because it wasn't very inspiring. Well, I thought in a way it was inspiring, but I was really pleased to give it because I think we need to really map out the issues that we find as we practice Dharma. And so, yeah, one of the pitfalls that I talked about in that talk was about the effects of that genuine inspiration, but combined with sort of a naive idealism, which comes out of not really knowing ourselves very well. So, yeah, I could come along and start practicing, and you know, maybe as a young person, and I go on a week's retreat, and I get immensely inspired, and I decide that I'm going to leave my job and give up my flat and my partner, and I'm going to go and live in a cave somewhere, and I'm just going to meditate, and I'm going to live on boiled stones, you know, not nettles like that Milarepa, you know, I'm just really going to sort of go for it. So I go and do that, and you know, for about 2 days, you know, this is a proper Dharma life, and it's fantastic. And then on day 3, you know, all the unintegrated bits of me that didn't get consulted or got overridden, they all appear, and suddenly, you know, I'm a complete wreck. I mean, it's worth really appreciating that there's something very, very beautiful about that initial inspiration. Yeah, there's something. It's so kind of pure and simple and wholehearted. Yeah, we need to really value it and yeah, appreciate it. But it can lead us to go beyond what we're capable of doing, and in the process, yeah, we can cause ourselves quite a lot of difficulty and heartache. Yeah, either we don't know ourselves well enough to realize that there wasn't enough of us behind this, or the other parts of ourselves just felt really outgunned. Sort of the bit of us that, you know, was concerned about having a nice place to live felt outgunned when the inspired bit started talking about supreme and perfect enlightenment. Yeah, so the other bits just felt like they couldn't really have their say fully. So yeah, we can end up with situations where yeah, we have done things out of the best of motives, which didn't turn out very well, and then we feel regret. And sometimes we don't just feel regret. It's like if there's a simple kind of grief, that's okay. But sometimes it's more like the situation doesn't get resolved because part of us was saying, oh, you know, no, let's not do this. And it didn't get listened to. And that part never quite gives up. It keeps on sort of giving us a hard time because it's frustrated. It's a bit like if somebody else says, oh, let's do this, it's going to be great. And sort of internally we think, oh, I'm not sure it is going to be great, but we don't say anything. When it turns out not to be very great at all, often we're quite cross with that person. And when we go into it, we discover that that feeling of crossness, of anger, comes from our frustration with ourselves at not having said. Yeah. So that can happen internally as well. Yeah. If part of ourselves didn't stand up and say, I'm sorry, I can't do this, or I'm really not sure about this, if it allowed itself to be overridden, then that frustration just carries on, and it can carry on. So we never resolve the thing internally for ourselves. It just carries on as unfinished business. So we need to make sure we finish the past as much as possible, which means accepting, okay, we were really inspired, and that's really positive. It didn't turn out well, and there's grief from that, or we may even have hurt other people without meaning to. So we really have to forgive ourselves for that. And the parts of ourselves that were right all along, we have to just acknowledge, okay, sorry, you were right. And we have to make our peace with the past, yeah. If need be, we just lay the whole thing, you know, at the feet of the Buddha, at the feet of Ayodhya, and go, okay, that was that. But we will have to feel the grief of that didn't turn out well. What we don't want is to take the message from that inspiration is dangerous, And it's a bit like if you've driven a car at 85 miles an hour and you had a crash, you may decide from then on, I'm just going to drive at 30 miles an hour, no matter what, you know, and I'll just be safe. And in your Dharma life, it's like you can get to the point where, yes, you want to practice, but you don't want to put yourself in situations where you do get so inspired that you get carried away and you don't know what that's going to lead to, which means you never really quite allow yourself to go full tilt. You never really get your Dharma life out of second gear. So you're definitely practicing, but it's all quite cautious. Yeah, you're not going to get too excited about this because you tried that and it didn't work. Yeah. So what we want is to see that the problem wasn't with the inspiration itself, it was with the lack of communication, if you like, with the inspiration and the rest of us. It was with our lack of integration at that point. Yeah. The problem in a way was that we just didn't know ourselves well enough. So that's the lesson that we have to learn, is that, yeah, our inspiration has to take into account all of us as much as possible, and has to be really well sort of checked out with our spiritual friends. You know, if we're planning to make, you know, drastic changes as a result of it. Yeah, because we really need to be living a full-on Dharma life. Life is short. So we need to be able to find ways of being able to go back into top gear, yeah, safely. That's where we want to be. Yeah, we need to be going full throttle with our Dharma life, yeah, but in a way that takes into account, you know, all those sort of aspects of ourselves that are vulnerable, that are cautious about the whole thing. We want a sort of global view of ourselves, yeah, where the Dharma is sort of in the driving seat, but taking into account everything as much as possible. Yeah. And sometimes we can feel very inspired and realize, actually, okay, yes, but we're not ready to take that step or that step. But that doesn't prevent us from really fully tapping into the inspiration. So yeah, there's a few thoughts there. But there's a recording of that Here Be Dragons talk and a transcript somewhere. I'll see if I can.
They've already put it on.
They've already put it up. My goodness. Wow. Is that Adhisthana?
Yeah.
Extraordinary. Yeah. Yeah. Do please give Adhisthana lots of dana for this retreat. They are just the most amazing beings. Okay. So unless anybody wants to just ask anything about that, you're very welcome. Clarify. With all these things, it's difficult talking to a large number of people, because with some people you'd really emphasize the, yeah, not being put off, and with other people you'd emphasize more caution. It's like, but yeah, hopefully you get the general idea. The main thing is that we want to resolve the past. We want to allow ourselves, you know, not be scared of inspiration. Yeah, really go close to that fire of the Dharma and warm ourselves. But then really apply it wisely, you know, with our own wisdom and, yeah, the wisdom of our friends. But let's not just, you know, kind of go very, very cautiously in our Dharma life, because, yeah, that would just be really, really sad. Okay. So just before we meditate, maybe a couple of points about Tonglen, just reminders for those of you who aren't so familiar with it. One of the issues that people come up against practically quite often doing it is that it says, put the giving and taking on the breath. As you get more into the practice, you may get quite absorbed in some aspect of the taking or the giving, and it no longer matches your breath. So at that point, let go of trying to fit it into the breath. The breath is just a support. The breath is just it's like a physical metaphor for what we're doing. Yeah? Just as we take in air and share it, similarly, we're taking in suffering and the causes of suffering, and we're giving it out. But it is just a support. So if you get absorbed in some aspect of the practice, don't worry about the breathing. Some people doing Tonglen really focus on the more immediate sufferings in the world. They'll focus on refugees or the illness of a friend or whatever it may be.
Coronavirus.
Sorry?
Coronavirus.
COVID would be the immediate obvious example. Other people focus more on the sort of the deeper causes of suffering. So the taking away the illusions about life that people have, taking away the kleshas and giving those qualities. They're both valid ways to practice, and I think it's good over time to be able to have both of them as ways that you operate, so that we're flexible. We can respond to immediate suffering that we know about around us. So we can respond, say, to the pandemic that's going on. We can be aware of all sorts of immediate sufferings, people in lockdown and so on. And we can also respond to the underlying causes, seeing it more from a viewpoint of the Dharma. So you can choose or allow your mind to go in either direction, whatever feels appropriate at the time. Okay. In that case, let's meditate. So everything just as it is. Making sure we're well grounded. Making sure our posture's as supportive as possible. Feeling into the body. How is it to be embodied now? I invite you to do a little reflection meditation. I want to do this from your heart center. With a sense of the body. We're not just thinking, we're bringing our thoughts, but also our intuition, our felt sense in response to things, our emotions, can all be included. What I invite you to do is to go back, as it were, into the past and be aware of all kinds of things that were really important to you at the time. Yeah, from where you sat in class when you were 12 years old. All kinds of things, things that were important, the music that was really important to you, or all these different things, and how, with the passage of time, they've all disappeared. They've left their effects on who you've become, the you that's unfolded in dependence on them. But in themselves, they're just gone like a dream. We don't have to make this a very heavy and serious reflection. It can be quite light and playful. Just, yes, this used to be really important. It felt really serious. And then life went on. And in doing this, we're looking to find a middle way. The fact that with the passing of time, these things aren't important doesn't take all the value and meaning out of them. We can appreciate them, appreciate the person that we were, appreciate the things that they were engaged with. Remember from our heart, and have a sense of, and that was temporary. It was the flow of life. So we're giving things value, but we're seeing they're not finally real. They're all depending on conditions. So we're finding a way of reflecting that enables us to be open-hearted to life, to engage fully, but also with a lightness, a sense of ease and flow, not caught up, not weighed down. All those anxious thoughts I've had over the years, where are they now? Now when we're ready, coming fully into the present moment, into the body, just sitting, sharing the merits, maybe with a few words internally, maybe just with an out breath. Okay. Enjoy the dreamlike time. I'll see you next. And hope to see a lot of you in session 3. All the best till then.